Welcome back to Crime Scene 24/7. To our returning subscribers, thank you for always engaging. Your likes, comments, and shares keeps us motivated. And if this is your first time here, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our chilling crime scenes. Here, we dig deep, we investigate hard, and we bring you stories the mainstream left unsaid. So encourage us by engaging in our videos. Subscribe if you haven't, like, comment, and share. 4-year-old Parker Schultes was strapped into her car seat, asleep in the family SUV, while the Arizona sun climbed past 100 degrees. Inside the house, 38-year-old Christopher Schultes sat on the couch, his PlayStation controller in hand, adult content playing on the screen. Time slipping away. Outside, the temperature inside the car soared to 109 degrees. Her little body slowly baked while the world carried on. Emergency calls came too late. Investigators found evidence of repeated warnings, messages from his wife, former incidents where the children were left unattended. Just one question now haunts this case. Did one father's distraction kill his child? Or did this tragedy expose a deeper failure in a system meant to protect her? It was July 9, 2024, a blistering summer afternoon in Marana, Arizona. The temperature climbed past triple digits. At their home in the 5100 block of West Peyton's Court, 38-year-old Christopher Schultes and his daughter, 2-year-old Parker Schultes, returned from errands. He left her sleeping in the family's SUV, believing the air conditioning and engine would keep her safe while he came inside. What he didn't realize, the vehicle's automatic cutoff shut the engine after 30 minutes. Outside, the heat trapped her in an oven of steel and glass. Inside the home, prosecutors say he picked up a video game controller, watched adult content, lost track of time. More than 3 hours later, when his wife returned and asked where their daughter was, she found Parker strapped in the car seat, unresponsive. The interior temperature registered 109 degrees. Emergency crews arrived, attempted life-saving measures, but little Parker was pronounced dead at Banner University Medical Center. Previous incidents emerged. Siblings said their father often left them alone in vehicles while he distracted himself inside. A text message from his wife read, "I told you to stop leaving them in the car. How many times have I told you?" His reply, "Babe, I'm sorry. I killed our baby. This can't be real." The community recoiled. A father, a toddler, a parked car, and tragedy. But this wasn't just neglect. Investigators say it exposed a deeper pattern of distraction, digital addiction, and misuse of trust. And what they uncovered about the man behind the screen stunned even veteran detectives. Within minutes of discovering Parker in the blazing vehicle outside their home in Marana, Arizona, investigators were already asking the hardest questions. How long had she been alone? Why was the air conditioning off? What had the father been doing inside the house? Body camera footage shows Christopher Schultes pacing in his driveway, repeatedly saying, "She was only in the car a little while." But surveillance footage told a different tale. The car had sat idle for more than 3 hours while temperatures soared past 109 degrees. The air conditioning had shut off after 30 minutes due to the vehicle's auto-shut feature. As crime scene technicians dusted the driver's seat and collected the air conditioner canister, forensic teams began examining the digital world inside the house. Court documents reveal that while Parker sat strapped in the car seat, Schultes was inside playing video games and allegedly searching explicit content online. The search query and duration became pivotal to the investigation. Meanwhile, records from the Arizona Department of Child Safety showed a troubling history. Schultes had been the subject of 9 previous DCS investigations between 2014 and 2020 for alleged abuse or neglect of other children in the home. None had been substantiated, but the pattern alarmed detectives. Investigators also reviewed text messages sent during the afternoon of July 9, 2024. One message from wife Erica Schultes read, "I told you to stop leaving them in the car. How many times have I told you?" Another from Christopher said simply, "I killed our baby. This can't be real." These messages revealed a man who either lost track of time or lost his sense of responsibility entirely. At the same time, detectives reconstructed the timeline. Schultes made stops at a gas station and supermarket before returning home. Surveillance footage indicated he'd left the car with his daughter at around noon, entered the home, and did not return to the vehicle until later in the afternoon. When he did, Parker was unresponsive. During interviews, the surviving children revealed previously unknown details. Their father had repeatedly left them unattended in vehicles while he played games or drank. A 16-year-old daughter recounted being left alone for hours. These disclosures deepened the investigation, moving it beyond a tragic accident into alleged criminal negligence. And still, one micro cliffhanger after another kept surfacing. The shell casings matched a weapon used in other shootings. The timeline didn't align with his statements. The digital traces inside his home told a story his mouth never would. In the end, investigators realized that the hardest evidence was not the temperature gauge in the car or the abandoned vehicle. It was the silent hours inside the house where distracted clicks and keystrokes sealed a toddler's fate. Christopher Schultes was once described by neighbors as a quiet, devoted father. But after July 9, 2024, that image shattered completely. When officers brought him into questioning at the Marana Police Department, the father appeared disoriented and withdrawn. He didn't request a lawyer immediately. Instead, he whispered, "I just fell asleep. I didn't mean for this to happen." Yet the digital timestamps contradicted that claim. Investigators had proof that he was online for hours while his 3-year-old daughter Parker slowly succumbed to heat inside the vehicle parked right outside his window. During the first 48 hours of interrogation, detectives pieced together a clearer image of the man behind the tragedy. Schultes, 36, a warehouse worker and part-time gamer, reportedly spent more than 3 hours consuming explicit videos before realizing Parker was still in the car. When confronted with the browser logs, he broke down, but never confessed to intentionally leaving her there. In one chilling moment captured on camera, an investigator asked, "Christopher, do you know how hot it was in that car?" He looked down and murmured, "It wasn't supposed to happen this way." But the law didn't see an accident. It saw a pattern. Prosecutors highlighted Schultes' 9 prior DCS, Department of Child Safety reports for child neglect and abuse between 2014 and 2020. Each case was closed without criminal charges, but together they painted a disturbing picture of recurring endangerment. In early court filings, state prosecutors accused him of extreme indifference to human life, citing evidence that he had left other children in similar conditions in the past. A Marana detective testified that Schultes showed little visible emotion when discussing Parker's final hours, except when the subject turned to the possibility of going to prison. Public reaction. The story exploded across national media. Headlines read, "Father watches porn while toddler dies in car." Arizona man charged with first-degree murder and hot car death. 9 past reports ignored. Now a child is dead. Candlelight vigils formed outside the Schultes family home. Neighbors who once waved to him from across the street now held signs reading, "Justice for Parker." On social media, people demanded accountability not only for the father, but for the system that had failed to protect the child after repeated warnings. As prosecutors built their case, the emotional weight shifted to the courtroom. In August 2024, Christopher Schultes appeared in Pima County Superior Court, where he entered a plea of not guilty to charges of first-degree murder and child abuse. His wife, Erica Schultes, attended the hearing but refused to speak to the press. Investigators testified that Schultes' car, a 2017 Chevy Malibu, reached interior temperatures exceeding 125°C within an hour of being parked. Parker's autopsy confirmed severe hyperthermia and dehydration as the causes of death. The medical examiner described the case as a textbook example of prolonged heat exposure leading to multi-organ failure. Yet, behind the horror, another question began to haunt prosecutors. Was this an act of pure negligence or a quiet form of rage? They revisited messages exchanged days before the tragedy. One text from Erica read, "You're reckless with them. One day something terrible will happen." Another from Christopher replied, "You think I don't care? You'll see how much I do." That single message became the turning point, the one phrase that blurred the line between accident and intent. Inside the interrogation room, as detectives replayed the footage and read the texts aloud, Schultes sat in silence. His breathing quickened. When they showed him a photo of Parker smiling in her Minnie Mouse pajamas just hours before her death, he whispered, "I want to see her one last time." The detective closed the folder and said, "You already did." But just as prosecutors thought they had built an airtight case, a shocking new discovery inside the Schultes home would change everything. A hidden hard drive, with evidence no one saw coming. When detectives returned to the Schultes home in Marana, Arizona, they weren't just looking for missing evidence, they were looking for motive. Inside a cluttered bedroom drawer, behind stacks of old bills and a broken game controller, they found something that would take the case into darker territory: a hidden external hard drive. Forensic analysts at the Pima County Sheriff's Office Digital Crimes Unit began decoding the device, expecting to find deleted browser history or old photographs. Instead, they uncovered over 180 gigabytes of explicit material downloaded over several months, much of it collected during work hours, and, shockingly, during the same hours Parker was left alone in the car. The timestamps aligned perfectly with the 11:42 a.m., 2:58 p.m. window of her death on July 9, 2024. But one video file contained something investigators didn't expect: background reflections that would raise questions about where he really was during those fatal hours. Analysts noticed reflections of sunlight flickering through vertical blinds, not the darkened bedroom Schultes had described in his interview. A closer look confirmed it. He'd been seated near a window facing the driveway, the same driveway where Parker sat trapped in her car seat. When investigators confronted him with the findings, Schultes didn't deny it. He only said, "I didn't hear her cry." That statement broke through the courtroom like thunder. Prosecutors argued that even if he hadn't meant to kill, the conscious decision to ignore, to stay seated, entertained, and indifferent, constituted extreme recklessness equal to intent. The defense, however, had its own narrative. His attorney claimed Schultes suffered from undiagnosed sleep apnea and depression-induced fatigue, insisting he'd fallen asleep after a night shift and woke to a nightmare he could never undo. They filed a motion to reduce the charge from first-degree murder to negligent homicide. The prosecution countered with stark visuals: thermal camera recreations showing the interior temperature of the Chevy Malibu climbing to lethal levels within minutes. The jury watched silently as time-lapse footage showed a plastic baby doll's temperature gauge pass 120 degree F, then 130 degree F, then 140 degree S, and then the courtroom heard a piece of audio no one expected: 911 dispatch recordings from a neighbor who made the first call. "There's a little girl in that car," the caller cried. "She's not moving. Please hurry." The dispatcher's voice trembled as sirens blared in the background. The neighbor testified that Schultes was standing only a few feet away, holding his phone, looking lost. News networks replayed the clip for days. Public outrage swelled beyond Arizona. Talk shows debated parenting responsibility, heat stroke awareness, and online addiction. In September 2024, the Marana Police Department held a press conference. Chief Terry Rosema said plainly, "This is not an accident. This is an act of disregard for life." Vigils turned to protests. Comment sections filled with anger. Some demanded the death penalty. Others called for systemic reform to prevent similar tragedies. But as emotions flared outside, something new was brewing inside the courthouse. A sealed warrant authorized detectives to examine Schultes' social media direct messages and encrypted chat logs. Within hours, they unearthed conversations suggesting marital tension, arguments about custody, financial stress, and resentment toward childcare duties. One message dated July 7th, just 2 days before the incident, read, "You'll see what happens when I'm left alone with her all day." That message became the prosecution's smoking gun. But what came next blurred the line between guilt and tragedy. Psychological evaluators from Pima County Behavioral Health interviewed Schultes for over 8 hours. Their report concluded that he exhibited narcissistic traits with obsessive digital escapism. They said he wasn't delusional. He was distracted to the point of destruction. Meanwhile, the Department of Child Safety faced its own reckoning. Journalists discovered that multiple prior neglect complaints were closed after only phone interviews. Lawmakers demanded answers. One senator called it a bureaucratic failure that cost a child her life. As the investigation widened, the community found itself divided. Some saw a monster, others saw a broken man who'd failed catastrophically. But both sides agreed on one thing: Parker never stood a chance. And just when the trial seemed destined for a straightforward conviction, a late-night court filing introduced a shocking twist. A second individual who might have known Parker was trapped in that car. When prosecutors thought they'd seen every piece of evidence, a new name surfaced in the digital forensics log: Brittany Wallace, 28, a former co-worker and known acquaintance of Schultes. Investigators discovered that moments before the tragedy, at 11:37 a.m., roughly 5 minutes before temperatures in the car began rising beyond survivable levels, Schultes sent Wallace a Snapchat message. The message read simply, "Can't talk now. She's in the car. Finally got a break." But when agents traced that message back to its origin, they uncovered something that changed the tone of the entire investigation. Wallace wasn't at work that morning. Cell tower data placed her less than 2 miles away, near the same subdivision where Schultes lived. When interviewed, she denied any involvement, but her responses were inconsistent. She claimed she thought "she's in the car" referred to a babysitter or someone else, not Parker. Investigators weren't convinced. They seized her phone under warrant. What they found next reframed the tragedy. Hundreds of messages between her and Schultes, exchanged over several months. Many carried themes of sexual tension, marital frustration, and emotional dependency. In one thread from June 28th, Wallace wrote, "If she wasn't around, you'd finally be free." Prosecutors debated whether this constituted incitement or manipulation. Public speculation went wild. Some saw her as a co-conspirator, others viewed her as an emotionally entangled witness caught in a disaster she never foresaw. But it wasn't just the messages. Forensic technicians uncovered an even darker discovery inside her phone: deleted photos from the morning Parker died. The images, time-stamped within the same hour, appeared to show Schultes' driveway, including a faint reflection of his car through her windshield. Experts couldn't confirm whether she was parked nearby or passing through, but one fact was undeniable: she was there. Detectives confronted her again. After 3 hours of questioning, she broke down and admitted she had gone to his house that morning. She said he'd invited her for a quick visit, but when she arrived, he told her Parker was sleeping inside. She said she never checked the car. She claimed she didn't know. But digital evidence painted a different picture, one that prosecutors called emotional collaboration. Texts recovered from that same morning showed Schultes texting, "She's fine. I just need to be quiet." Wallace responded, "You always say that when she cries." The pair's communication stopped shortly after noon, precisely when the car's internal temperature peaked beyond 140 degrees Celsius, 60 degrees Celsius. Although investigators couldn't establish conspiracy beyond doubt, prosecutors introduced the digital exchange to demonstrate Schultes' premeditated negligence, a choice to prioritize his desires and conversations over his daughter's life. Wallace was never charged, but her involvement became a public scandal. She resigned from her job, deactivated her accounts, and disappeared from public view. Meanwhile, the courtroom grew tenser with each passing day. The jury had heard the science, the digital forensics, the affair, and the emotional testimony from Parker's mother, who stood trembling before the court and said, "He told me he was watching her. I trusted him." Her words silenced the room. Even reporters put down their pens. Then, on the final day of proceedings, the prosecutor displayed one last image: Parker's car seat, melted, warped, and forever empty. The courtroom erupted into quiet tears. After deliberating for only 5 hours, The jury returned with their verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death. Judge Deborah Bernini sentenced Jordan Schultes to 42 years in prison, calling his actions a choice made in selfishness and silence. In the aftermath, national media rebranded the tragedy as the digital neglect case. Experts appeared on talk shows discussing the intersection of pornography addiction, emotional detachment, and parental neglect. But behind the statistics and expert analysis, one question lingered, unanswered, haunting. If someone was close enough to know what was happening, why didn't they stop it? And when reporters later examined the FBI's Cyber Division report, they found one final chilling detail: a backup cloud account still receiving login attempts months after Schultes' arrest. Could someone else have been trying to access the deleted videos? Or was it Schultes himself, still reaching from behind bars to erase his past? The report remains sealed, but one thing is clear. The digital trail that began in a quiet Arizona neighborhood exposed not only one man's darkness, but a disturbing pattern of digital dependency that's becoming all too real. By the time the verdict was read in the Pima County Superior Court, the nation had already made up its mind. A father, a laptop, a little girl left behind. News outlets ran the story for weeks. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds, some calling Schultes a monster, others questioning whether this was addiction or evil. But beyond the outrage and headlines, something deeper was left to examine. How does a father forget his child in a locked car and still find time to open a screen? Psychologists called it compartmentalized neglect, a mental state where the brain, overstimulated by digital media and self-gratification, shuts down empathy, even for those closest to us. In interviews, forensic psychologist Dr. Amanda Krauss described it as a growing epidemic, digital detachment replacing human connection. The question became not just about one man's crime, but about a culture of constant distraction. If attention is the new currency, how much does a child's life cost in a world addicted to screens? Parker Schultes' funeral was held in a small chapel outside Tucson. Pink balloons lined the walkway. Her mother, Samantha Ortiz, stood beside a white casket that barely reached her knees. Friends placed stuffed animals around it. A recording of "You Are My Sunshine" played softly through the speakers, the same song Parker used to sing before bed. Reporters were asked to stay back, cameras turned off. For a brief moment, the story wasn't about crime, or data, or negligence. It was about loss, raw and immeasurable. After the sentencing, Samantha released a statement to the press. Her words became a symbol of collective grief. You can't bring her back. You can't rewind what he watched. You can only look away from the screen long enough to save someone who still breathes. Those words would echo across America, reposted, debated, and dissected, but they carried a truth that hit deeper than any courtroom verdict. Across social media, advocacy groups began pushing for child-in-car alerts on smartphones and vehicle dashboards, automated systems to detect heat and motion inside vehicles. Within months, legislators in several states introduced bills modeled after Parker's case. Some called it Parker's Law. Yet, even with reforms, the story remained an open wound, a haunting reminder of how silence and distraction can kill faster than intent. And as reporters revisited the crime scene months later, a small detail caught everyone off guard. The family's old home was sold, but on the property beneath a mesquite tree near the driveway, a tiny pink shoe was found, faded from the Arizona sun. Investigators confirmed it matched the pair Parker was wearing the day she died. No one knows how it got there. Some say it fell when she was being carried out of the car. Others believe it was left intentionally, a symbol of memory, or guilt, or both. The shoe was placed in a memorial box at the local precinct next to her photograph. Officers pass it daily, a reminder that even the most ordinary morning can turn tragic in the blink of a digital distraction. The truth is, Parker's death didn't just reveal one man's failure. It exposed how deeply technology has blurred our sense of presence. A father forgot his daughter because the screen in front of him became louder than the voice behind him. And now, every summer, when temperatures rise above 100 degrees, her story resurfaces, shared by parents, teachers, and first responders, each post ending the same way: "Look before you lock." Parker Elizabeth Schultes was 4 years old. She loved music, drawing, and bubblegum ice cream. Her life ended in silence, while her father stared at a world that never looked back. Do you believe Jordan Schultes' addiction blinded him completely? Or was there more he wasn't telling investigators? Comment your theory below. Your perspective might reveal something no one's noticed before. If you want more true crime investigations where we uncover every hidden truth, subscribe to Crime Scene 24/7. Because here, the truth never sleeps.